8 months away from competitive basketball. And the first thing Caitlin Clark did when she hit the floor in Miami was make everyone forget she had ever left. That is not how rust is supposed to work. When a player misses that much time, you expect hesitation. You expect tentative reads, an extra beat before pulling the trigger. The kind of caution that tells you the body is still catching up with the mind. That is the normal script. Clark did not follow it. From the very first day of Team USA camp in Miami, the footage circulating online told a completely different story, one that has a lot of people inside this league rethinking the conversation that was building around her return, and that is exactly what we are digging into today. What actually happened in Miami, what Clark's performance means for Team USA heading to Puerto Rico, and why the details from just 2 days of camp reveal something far more significant than a simple comeback story. If this kind of analysis is what you rely on to stay ahead of the noise, hit the like button right now. It tells us the work we are doing here matters, and it keeps this channel pushing deeper into the stories that actually move the needle. So let us set the scene. Team USA assembled in Miami for a 2-day minicamp with one objective: compress months of team development into 48 hours before boarding a flight to Puerto Rico for the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament, which opens March 11th, 2 days. A roster loaded with stars from different systems, different habits, different rhythms. On paper, the names are staggering. In practice, names mean nothing until players start reading each other. That is the tension that made this camp so revealing. Chemistry is not something you declare, it is something you build. And in a window this short, every repetition carries triple the weight. Every drill, every defensive rotation, every transition push either moves the needle toward cohesion or exposes a gap that becomes a problem once tournament play begins. The coaching staff was not in Miami for spectacle. They were there for synchronization, tightening offensive sets, speeding up communication, sharpening the defensive reads that separate a talented collection of players from a team that actually controls games. And inside that larger story, one name drew a different kind of attention. For Clark, this was not just a national team camp. It was her first return to competitive basketball after an 8-month layoff caused by injuries. That changes everything about how you watch the footage. You are not just tracking whether she makes shots, you are watching how she moves, how quickly she processes, whether her instincts are still firing at the speed the game demands, whether she looks like someone who belongs in the center of elite competition or someone who is still working her way back to that level. The early practice clips answered that question faster than most people expected. She was not easing in. She was not managing her minutes or her confidence. She was active, assertive, and already organizing possessions on the floor, directing traffic, moving the ball, stepping into shots without hesitation. For someone returning from 8 months away, that is not a small detail. Rust almost always shows up before confidence does. The fact that it did not show up at all in day one, that is the story. The online reaction tracked exactly what you would expect when the footage started spreading. When fans saw Clark sharing the floor with players like Paige Bueckers and Reese, the interest was not just about individual talent, it was about possibility. What does this group look like when those pieces start reading off each other instead of just playing beside each other? Day 1 gave people a preview. Day 2 was where the real pressure went on. So here is what we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. After watching what came out of Miami, do you think Clark and this roster have enough time to build real chemistry before the tournament opener? Or is 2 days simply not enough? The answer matters more than people realize. And the responses down there are always more dialed in than anything you will find in the mainstream coverage. By the second day, the intensity inside camp shifted the way it always does. Day 1 is entry, get everyone moving, re-establish timing, reintroduce structure. Day 2 is pressure. The pace accelerates, the reps become more competitive. Coaches push players into game-like situations where habits surface instead of staying hidden. Full court work, 5-on-5 sequences, defensive reads under time pressure, communication on broken possessions where the original action is gone and someone has to make a live decision. Those are the moments that separate the players who can execute in practice from the ones who can execute when it counts. That is also where Breanna Stewart's presence in Miami became something the cameras could not fully capture. Stewart joined the group for these 2 days, and what she brought went beyond whatever showed up in highlight clips. On a roster that blends established names with younger talent, veteran standard setting shows up in quiet ways. A comment between reps, a correction during a drill, the level of focus she brings to every single sequence, which signals to everyone around her what this camp actually demands. For players adjusting to the national team environment, those moments compress the learning curve in ways that never show up in box scores. For Clark specifically, being around players operating at Stewart's level does something beyond testing her conditioning. It sharpens instinct. It forces split-second decisions. It pulls her back into the pace and stakes of real basketball, not controlled workouts, not isolated rehab reps, but the actual rhythm of a team preparing for games that matter. And here is where the Miami footage becomes genuinely significant. If Clark is already moving with confidence after 8 months away, already organizing possessions, already stepping into shots without that extra hesitation that rust creates, then the conversation has to evolve. It is no longer about whether she is back. It becomes about how much damage she can do and how fast she can reshape the rhythm of this entire group. If this level of analysis is why you keep coming back, consider joining the channel as a member. Your support is what makes it possible for us to stay ahead of the stories nobody else is digging into. Because here's what tournament basketball actually demands. And this is the part that separates a 2-day camp preview from what happens once games begin. International play does not have patience for loose possessions or slow adjustments. The game rewards teams that recognize each other early, trust each other under pressure, and execute simple reads at full speed. Talent wins stretches, cohesion wins possessions. And the possessions that feel messy or rushed are the ones that cost teams games at this level. That challenge is real for a roster this loaded. Multiple players capable of changing the feel of a game also means multiple players who have to make the right read in the same moment. The best version of this Team USA will not come from everyone pressing for individual moments. It will come from understanding when to settle, when to push, and when to hand the possession over to whoever has the right matchup. That balance has to be built through live action. There is no shortcut. What Miami did was accelerate the timeline. By the time this group landed in Puerto Rico, the goal was never perfection. It was traction, enough shared rhythm to enter the tournament with structure, confidence, and a clear identity as a team, because once the games start, the setup period is over. Everything built in 2 days in Miami has to hold up against real competition, real pressure, and real consequences. Clark's camp performance set a tone for what this roster could be at its ceiling. But the Puerto Rico tournament is where that ceiling gets tested. And if the energy out of Miami carries into how this team plays when it counts, then what felt like a return story may actually be the opening chapter of something a lot more dangerous. If you want to track every development as this tournament unfolds, subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss what comes next. Because this roster is about to face the kind of pressure that reveals what is real, and we are going to be right here breaking down every moment as it happens. Stay locked in.